Hello everyone, this is Marcy from the Strategic Planning, Communications, and Project Management team. I want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon for our ITS Spotlight Live. We hope you get to learn a little bit more about your fellow ITS employees. Before I introduce our speaker, I just want to remind you all that you can submit questions at any time using the form on our ITS Spotlight page, and we will answer those questions at the end of the presentation. Now I'm going to introduce our speaker. Dan O'Brien is here from Vendor Management, and Dan's going to talk to us today about some functions of his team and what they do for campus. All yours, Dan.
Hey everybody, I'm Dan O'Brien. I lead vendor management for ITS, including the service center, inventory, and warehouse operations. So vendor management is broken into four real groups. That's risk management, relationship management, contract management, and performance management. So in risk management, what we're looking for is what's happening in the market. What are the market changes? So that could be mergers and acquisitions, who's making or losing money, who's gaining or losing market share. And we're looking at resources like the Wall Street Journal, CNBC, resources that we buy on your behalf, like Gartner, press releases, 10Ks, what have you, to try to figure out what's happening in the market. So we have a vendor right now who's been bought 3 times in the last 4 years. Not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, it's just, it's something that we're looking at. So we're monitoring them very closely, trying to have the right level of conversations with them to make sure that they're a vendor that we want to continue doing business with and that they're going to be around in the space. They're also an as a service vendor, right? So when we do software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, we are not reducing necessarily our risk. Even though we might be reducing risk on-prem, that risk still exists. So we are really wanting to try to make sure that we're planning for exits before we even sign on the line for that contract. So that's risk management. Relationship management is what we're doing to maintain and develop relationships inside of these vendors. And we're trying to get multiple levels of relationships. And what really is important there is that we're trying to get to a point where they pick up the phone because Dan's calling, not just because the University of Kentucky with a ton of buying power is calling. So that kind of starts with generally with a phone call. And one thing that I want to stress, for all of us who are on the phone a lot, a smile goes a long way. So when I'm on the phone with a vendor, especially for the first time, I'm trying to give them my best with a smile, because that leaves me some emotional room when things are not going so well, that I can come down with a little bit of something else so that they can know exactly where I am in all things. Contract management's next. That's what you probably think about with vendor management generally. So the contract management is negotiating, it's reviewing terms and SLAs. We do lots and lots and lots of contracts here. So we have 230 renewals. We're doing something like 800 transactions a year, spending close to $20 million. So we do a lot of contracts, a lot of purchasing, and we have great partners in that. So purchasing is a perfect example. We have great partnership there, Joyce and Oliver, Naoma Berry, et cetera. It's just a great unit to work with, and we're lucky to have them. Legal also helps us a lot there. And we also work with risk management. And of course, none of this would happen if the business office wasn't such a great partner with us and Deanna Gold's team. So that's very, very important. But what we're trying to do in contract management is memorialize in the contracts what the vendors have promised in words and in conversation that they're going to do for us. In performance management, that's probably our largest push right now. So we're lucky that we just hired Kim Stock on our team from AV Services. So Kim's going to be working with my team and with Deanna Gold's budget office in performance management. And we're doing there is we're trying to drive value adds. So we want to assess how the vendor's performing. We're going to be working to collect and monitor metrics, those kinds of things. So that's on the performance management part. So what I get a lot is that I'm the money guy. So when I walk in, they assume that I'm the guy who's only going to care about dollars, and that's not it. What we care about is value. So the goal of vendor management is to drive value from our vendors for the university through effective risk management, relationship management, contract management, and performance management. So on the inventory and warehouse operations side, We want to supply the right product at the right time for ITS for our service center projects, maintenance, and break fix. In inventory and warehouse operations, we're doing 750 orders a year, roughly $10 million, and incredibly, they manage 165,000 pieces every year, which is incredible. It's a huge load for them, and they do an amazing job with it. So if you ever saw our inventory counts and those numbers, they're incredible. So that team does an awesome job. So new for them is working with vendors to help us decrease our number of orders, and that, of course, it's going to be working with the PMs there as well. And we're going to try to drive our discounts off list and move towards a just-in-time inventory. So that's vendor management in a nutshell. So I understand there's some questions that might be coming through. How do you buy something smaller like office supplies? Sure. So we do everything with ITSRs. So you would submit a ServiceNow request, and that's just a procurement ITSR. So click on procurement, and you know, at the end of entering in, you know, your approval from your manager and the price and an attachment, then you're going to click on request approval, and that's how you'll get in the procurement queue. And the process is actually the same if you're buying something large. So you're still submitting the ITSR. The difference when you're buying something large is that we want to be engaged very early on. Depending on what you're buying, it really matters. So we're going to purchase things in different ways, and we really want to make sure that we're getting in front of those purchases. So if you're conceptualizing a purchase, whether it's large or especially if it's large, please let us know so that we can help you navigate the procurement regulations. All right, who do you work with most on campus outside of your unit? So outside of our unit, we work with the business office the most. And after that, we have great relationships, like we said, with procurement, central procurement, with legal, with risk management. More questions coming in here. Any negotiation tips? Yeah, so the biggest thing with negotiation is that you have to know what you want. So you have to know what it is what you have to get out of the negotiation. So that takes planning. The other major thing with negotiation is timing. So you want to make sure that, you know, we're utilizing timing in every aspect of the word. When we're talking to a vendor, we want to make sure that we're listening more than we're talking. When is an RFP done? An RFP is completed after we've signed the contract. So, and that's one of the lengthiest parts of that process. It's the best time in purchasing to engage your team. The best time in the purchasing process to engage our team is at the very beginning, is at conceptualization. How do we get more golf carts? You know, the golf carts were a tough sell for me, but after I see how much you guys really use them, it makes perfect sense that that's something that we could look into, the possibility of getting more golf carts. Okay. How do you handle tough vendor relationships? Well, recently we've had some negotiations that were very difficult based on vendor performance in the past. So, you know, that's when we have to relook at the vendor market as a whole. So it turned out okay, but that's where, you know, we really have to choose our words carefully. We have to understand what our options are and, you know, make the best choice, trying to drive back towards value for the university. Best donut in Lexington has to be Spalding's. Absolutely. Is there another one? Oh, Frank's is pretty good, but I can't get that in Lexington right now. All right, we got a last question coming through. If there is a problem with a vendor, when should the VMO get involved? At the earliest possibility. If there's a problem with the vendor, let us know right away, and we'll do what we can to reduce that administrative waste for you guys. That's another part of what we're here to do, is really to help you guys focus on where you're adding value, and in every other situation, let us handle the administrative tasks of dealing with the vendors. Okay.
All right, well, I think that's going to bring us to a close. Thank you, Dan, for speaking with us today, and I want to give a special thanks to the Faculty Media Depot for letting us use their space. I hope everyone is going to join us for our next ITS Spotlight on Friday, September 14th with Jennifer Pusateri from CELT, who works in conjunction with ITS to support universal design for learning and accessibility. Please look for details coming into your email on how you can watch this session again or volunteer to speak in the next Bits and Bytes. Thank you all and have a great afternoon.